Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. No, this is the final one. Okay. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, family and friends. How's everybody? All right, we're going to pump it up this afternoon. We're here on an auspicious and important occasion. I happen to believe we're going to make history. In fact, all this week, history is being made, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. My name is Rick Adams. I'm the chairperson of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century Board of Directors. I hail from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I co-chair the Western Pennsylvania Black Political Assembly. And relevant to today, I looked up some things about my own Commonwealth, my own state. And I was surprised, but not really, to find out that the Pew Charitable Trust did a study. And 24 states have shown an increase in people incarcerated, in black people incarcerated. In fact, Pennsylvania was the third highest rate, a 4.3% increase. Half of this increase is in only 5 states: Pennsylvania, Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, and Alabama. We got serious work to do. We have devastated families, individuals, and communities that have been wrecked. We are here today to declare war on the war on drugs, creating just and humane alternatives to a failed strategy. We're talking about the devastating effects of a racially biased strategy on black communities. All this week, there's been actions all across the country. There's a mighty, mighty movement stirring. I think a time has come. I think this period is one of those unique periods. You probably have sensed them like I have in the last few years, when you knew a change was going to come. We have had actions all week. We're working in collaboration with the Drug Policy Alliance. This Sunday, the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, under the leadership of the brilliant Dr. Iva Crothers, they're sponsoring a Faith and Action Sunday across this country. Today, we're going to lay out a strategy, along with a lot of testimony and dialogue describing the problem, but we're always coming with some solutions also. You know, a lot of times we get in these gatherings, and what do? We talk about the problem, the problems. Somehow we run out of time and we don't get to the solutions. Well, we're going to do that today. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to put the call out for advocates on behalf of justice and a humane policy to turn around this failed 40-year war on drugs. Can you get with that 40 years? I'm not much older than that. 40 years we've been fighting this battle. And I dare say we lost. We got all kind of folks hurt, all kind of people dead, all kind of people incarcerated. We got individuals crazy out their minds. We got people addicted to drugs, infected with AIDS, communities rendered crazy. I just had my house broken into last week. It's a rampage. It's an epidemic that's eating at us. And what we need is a massive social, political, economic, a mass community response to turn this around. There's no other way. And so hopefully you will join with our allies, including the Black Family Summit, which is a coalition, a collaboration of organizations that are dealing with the healing of our community. We come together under the umbrella of the Institute of the Black World, but our mission is to be an action and thinking tank. Not a think tank, but an active think tank. In fact, we're rappers. You like that? We're rappers. We are. Because we're looking at research, we're looking at advocacy, and we're looking at policy. That's rap. R-A-P. That's the relevant rap, not to denigrate my hip-hop brothers and sisters, because a lot of them are doing some good work, and we're trying to work with them. We're going to call all the community together to address this epidemic and this problem before us. It is now my pleasure to call someone up that I, in working with the Institute of the Black World, have got gotten to know and to love and to respect. And that's Brother Baba Leonard Dunstan. He's the convener of the Black Family Summit. He's an Institute of the Black World Board member. He's Chair Emeritus of the National Association of Black Social Workers. And he's one of the straight-on brothers that I've met. One of the straight-on folks that you know you can rely on, and he's going to come with some real stuff. Brother Leonard Dunstan.
Thank you, Brother Rick. Hotep. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. In the interest of time, I want to briefly and succinctly summarize the development of the Institute of Black World 21st Century Black Family Summit. On October 14, 2005, at the Million More Movement, I was honored to have been asked by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to co-convene with him the heads of 30 national black organizations, professional as well as activists, in order to develop a partnership to support and strengthen black families. Specifically, at that time, the displaced families of Katrina and Rita. The following January 2006, we reconvened in New Orleans, Louisiana, and 60 of those organizations joined us to develop and entertain the ideas of public policy workshops, healing sessions, and interdenominational sessions. Since its inception, the Black Family Summit, in the spirit of operational unity, has sponsored several forums that were geared toward garnering federal, state, and local legislative support on behalf of black families and our communities. Those forums have included 6 congressional public policy forums on Capitol Hill through the gracious support of Congressman John Conyers, who is here today, Dr. Elsie Scott, and other members of the Black Congressional Caucus. We have also convened a national black organization leadership dialogue and published results via Howard University School of Social Work with Dr. Tricia Beth Goodley. Under Dr. Goodley's leadership at Howard University, we've also published other Black Family Summit public policy proceedings. Finally, as a last example that I'd like to share with you of a collaborative work, I want to very briefly share the work that we're doing currently around Haiti. And here's some of the background regarding the Haiti Family Preservation Task Force. It is an initiative of our institute. This task force was developed and organized by a diverse group of volunteers of African descent to address the needs of Haitian children following the horrific January 12, 2010 earthquake. Its primary purpose is to advocate for the preservation of Haitian families, with particular emphasis on the maintenance of Haitian culture and values. The task force is committed to exploring and identifying appropriate ways for children who are separated from their parents and relatives to be cared for primarily by Haitians. Special attention has been given to kinship care as the best option to ensure that. We also have been working with the Oasis Institute, which is an emerging 800-bed facility in Haiti. We are in the process now of raising funds to support that. It is run by a brother by the name of Lionel Pressoir, who is very close to us. Very briefly, the composition of the group is nurses, black psychologists, black psychiatrists, black social workers, black educators, adoption experts. There are 7 black family development or adoption agencies elected in this country. They are part of our family constellation. Kinship care experts, family preservation experts. We've also had at the table federal and state social workers who have helped us frame the issues from a federal perspective. Now I'd like to just, as you can probably appreciate better than I can, we could not do this work alone. So what I'd like to do very briefly is to introduce some of that family group that has helped make all the work that I've just sort of laid out for you possible. And with no particular order, I'm going to just call out their names. And as they stand, I'll ask them to just remain standing so you can see the full spectrum of who comprises this Black Family Summit constellation. The first person I'd like to call out is Dr. Bernadette Lacey, who is a board member with the National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS here in D.C. Brother Salim Adolfo, who is Vice President of the National Black United Front, Brother Joseph Muhammad, who is President of the International Black Association of Black Professional Firefighters, Brother George Wheeler, who is the Chief Financial Officer for the National Black Psychiatrists of America, Sister Clintana Van, who is the Assistant Chief Operations Officer for the National Black Psychiatrists of America, Dr. Lucy Perez, who I have not seen yet, she should be here, the Executive Board Member of the All Healers Mental Health Alliance, Brother Micah Harris, who is Chair of the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association, Sister Karen Allen, who is the National Secretary for the National Association of Black Social Workers, Brother Eugene Perrier, who is a Howard University senior and the Executive Committee of the organization called the Answer Coalition, Brother Ryan Saunders of the National Action Network, he should be here, Sister Amy Chin, and Sister Laura Carter of the Hip Hop Caucus Educational Fund, I saw them earlier, Sisters Villette Coleman and Edith Phillips from the National Organization of Black County of Officials, Sister Joyce Burrell, who is the Director of the Juvenile Justice Program, the American Institute for Research, Sister Sullivan Robinson, who is the Executive Director of the National Black Youth Committee's Age right here, she's over to my left. I also have, as you can now well imagine, I have just sort of misplaced my notes with all these other people. So as I fumble and try and find that, thank you. Gary Flowers is here, but Gary, stand please, the Executive Director of Black Leadership Forum. I also referenced a few others. Let me get them out of the way right now. Minister Anthony Muhammad, who is representing the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan in some place. There he is over there. Sister Darrell Baldwin, who is the D.C. rep for the Center for New Leadership on Urban Solutions. And finally, we have others who have joined our family recently. The Reverend Dr. David Cunningham, he should be here someplace. Reverend C.H. Johnson, thank you very much. Dr. Walter Fackett, I think he's over here to my right. Bishop Ronald Allen, who has been the Drugs and Drugs Has No Religious Choice. He's here with us. And I think I have just about now concluded all the family members who are here. Please show your love by thanking you.
Thank you, Brother Dunstan. As you can see, a powerful force of brothers and sisters. They're on the front line of healing and rebuilding our community. It is now my pleasure to introduce someone that I take orders from. I get late night phone calls. I get berated when I fall asleep and don't get on the conference call. And I'm mighty proud those few times when he says, you did the job well. Because he always has those helpful hints that makes me a better person. And if I could say anything about this brother, I could say all his life, from when he was a young man and decided that he was going to lead youth and get them in a drill team and get them in a leadership and community civic action kind of program, that Ron Daniels has been contributing to his community. Absolutely. He has been where we needed him. I first met him back in 1972. That's been a little while. And that's at the National Black Political Convention, and later with the National Black Political Assembly. And he's had me hooked ever since. He's a professor, lecturer at the City College of New York. He's a columnist. He's the visionary behind the Institute of the Black World. He has, I would say, taken point. Now he has a team around him, but he was the one that had the vision that said we need to pay attention to Haiti. That Haiti was very special to African Americans and Africans in the diaspora, and he has put the Haiti Support Project on the map as the foremost African American organization working in support of Haiti. Ron is tireless. He's a little older than me. I don't know how he keeps it, but I try to keep up. With no further ado, Brother Ron Daniels, President, founder of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century.
Very much, Ray. Don't make me too old now.
I said a little.
All right, because I ain't no ways tired.
All right.
I have an opportunity to say a few words later. I just wanted to as a point of personal privilege, be able to introduce these next two speakers. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge, I think I saw the executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance ease into the room. Ethan Middleman, did I see him come to the room?
Yes, you did.
Would you stand for acknowledgement, please? They're helping to coordinate projects all across the country. We'd now like to bring to the podium for remarks on this occasion, because it is a serious occasion. 40 years since the declaration of the war on drugs. And in the hood, folks have a way of just sort of making it plain. It didn't take long before the brothers and sisters began to say the war on drugs is a war on us. And it has been a war on us. It's tragic that race still matters in American society, despite the fact that we have a black family in the White House and there's some illusion about a post-racial America, which I hope one day occurs, but the fact of the matter is race still matters structurally. And nothing demonstrates that more than the war on drugs. And a person who has been a champion on issues of police accountability, of the prison jail industrial complex, trying to end these disparities between crack and powdered cocaine. I mean, consistently, he's been on this struggle for many, many years. And he is one of the most distinguished leaders we have in America today. He hails from the great city of Detroit. We know him, we love him. He's been a fierce fighter for all of his life. Would you please welcome, he's still my chairman, but he's the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, the Honorable John Conyers.
Thank you, Ron. Just like I wrote it. Brothers and sisters, this is a momentous occasion, and to be here with the Institute of the Black World and all of you is an honor for me. And in a sense, I represent everybody in the Congressional Black Caucus, all 42 other members, particularly including Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. and Bobby Scott, the congressman from Virginia. Give them a round of applause. This is an old subject for us. It's not new. We've been fighting this whole thing in the name of making the justice system better. And we have some problems that have developed. Namely, the rate of incarceration has grown even as the crime rate has gone down. This is, on one part of the paper you're reading that the crime rate's down, but when you look at the facts with Rainbow Push or the NAACP or the Congressional Black Caucus or the Institute of the Black World, the rate of incarceration is going up at the same time. The reason that I suggest is that people are being rearrested and incarcerated on technical violations, violations of parole or probation, and the whole drug question is something that I'm going to say something here today that I've never said before. I think we ought to decriminalize marijuana as a criminal activity. Why? Why do you want to do that, Chairman? Because the use is so widespread. As a matter of fact, it's going up. It's commonplace, and the medicinal harm has not been established, and nor have we connected it necessarily to the use of other addictive drugs. And so I say that as we meet here today in Washington, and 700,000 people are coming out of our prisons, federal and state, every single year. 700,000. Now, in the states that bar a felon from ever voting for the rest of his life, that's something that Reverend Dr. Jesse Lewis Jackson is going to comment on. That means that our voting power is decreased because of the disproportionate number of African Americans that are incarcerated, sometimes rightly and sometimes wrongly, in the first place. And by the way, let us give a round of applause to the man that worked with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and has gone on and continued his legacy more accurately and closely than any of the people that surrounded Dr. King. Reverend Dr. Jesse Lewis Jackson. Now, I don't know if our distinguished leader, Dr. Ron Daniels, arranged this with the New York Times, but ex-President Jimmy Carter published on the editorial page a column entitled "Call Off the Global Drug War." And how many people have seen this in today's paper? Quite a few. And it's very instructive because more and more people are realizing that our incarceration of our own citizens exceeds that the rate of more than any other country on earth. We all know that. I think it's accurate to say that there are more black young men in prison than there are in college.
It's been true for over 20 years.
And it's been true for over 20 years, I've been advised. And so we have a very serious problem. And this is what we're here to talk about today. One of the things I want to do is connect up all of the organizations that have been seriously working on this problem, starting with the institute that brings us here today. But Rainbow Push starts its conference in Chicago tomorrow. I'm going there. Can I get about 20% of you to go there with me to Chicago here?
You taking us?
Going to Chicago? Yes, as a matter of fact, you can go to Delta Airlines, American, and tell them I sent you. In addition, if you don't care to fly, you can also go to the train station in Washington and tell them the same thing there. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you in Chicago, because I will be there. And I wish you good luck too, brother. Now, in addition to Rainbow Push and the Institute for the Black World is the Congressional Black Caucus. On September the 21st at the Washington Convention Center, we have our 40th, God, Dr. Elsie Scott, the head of the foundation, walked in. Give her a round of applause. The executive director of the foundation is here. What we're doing during those 5 days from September 21st is that we're having workshops, and I have a whole day, I think it's Friday, and that we will be doing a workshop on this criminal justice system that is not just. We've got to deal with that. And we've also I've got to begin to organize those people that are coming out of prison. Do you mind if I say something about you, my brother? Here's a brother that's been looking for a job for how long? About a year. He'd been working for how long? And they came to him, 3 years. They came to him one day and said, oh, by the way, we found out that you had one time been incarcerated. And you know what that means? We got to let you go. There wasn't anything about coming to work on time, or the quality of his work, or the way he comported himself. Somebody looked up and found out he had a record, and he has been out of work ever since. But there are many others that don't ever get to get fired for having a record. And so what we've got to do here with all these organizations, I haven't mentioned the NAACP and the Urban League and a number of other organizations, and there are a lot of local organizations. We've got to do what Reverend Dr. Charles Adams at Hartford Avenue Baptist Church in Detroit has done. They have a committee in the church working with people that have been formerly incarcerated, and they meet and they're organizing. Do you know how much strength we would add to the struggle for justice? Uh-oh, the hook is coming. Well, he always starts off nice, but he has been known to get physical when we're dealing with who controls the microphone. But do you know how much power and conclusion that we have if we were to organize everybody that's been sent to prison and recognize and encourage them and help them get jobs and help the Congressional Black Caucus change some of these draconian laws at the federal and state level. And so I will, as they say in the Congress on the floor, I will put the rest of my remarks in the record. And you can read them from there. Thank you very much.
The Honorable John Conyers, give it up for him again. John Conyers is a jazz man, so that means he can improvise from now on. He is Mr. Jazz, you know. One of the highlights of the Congressional Black Caucus, in addition to all the other things that goes on, he every year convenes a session on jazz, a workshop and a concert. And so we may not all be able to jump on a plane and go to the Rainbow Push, but we all know we can be on September 21st at the Congressional Black Caucus. That's right. I also wanted the special privilege of introducing our keynote presenter for this afternoon. And we hope that everybody is going to settle in and hang for the entirety of the afternoon, because we have an incredible panel here, an incredible panel that is going to, in fact, lay out the devastating impact of the war on drugs and talk about alternatives. And some of it is not going to be easy. Some of it is going to challenge some conventional thinking. But that's why we're here. We didn't get here by our choice. We're in this predicament, and we now need to find our way out. But one of the reasons I needed to stand, because the Honorable John Conyers has to catch a train, and Reverend Jackson's got to get a plane. It is now my honor to introduce one of the foremost leaders of our time. One of the foremost leaders of our time. He is my former boss. I'm honored and privileged to say that for many, many years, We worked together, but I had the privilege of being the executive director of the Rainbow Coalition and deputy campaign manager for his 1988 campaign. And that's important. Few people have the opportunity to serve at that level. So many people that you see now, whether it's Donna Brazil and others on television, so they got their opportunity. They were in fact elevated through a process to incredible crusades. They're not just campaigns, crusades. Yeah. 1984, 1988. If it had not been for the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, there would be no Barack Hussein Obama in the White House. Some people may be confused, I'm not.
That's right. That's right.
But more important than anything else, and he and I, we argue every now and then about this, that, and the other. But as a civil rights, human rights leader, on the issue of public policy, because this doesn't get changed because we're angry, don't get changed because we're frustrated and upset. It gets changed because we organize to impact public policy.
That's right. Yeah.
And I can remember many, many times Reverend Jackson talking to ministers about how within the context of their ministry they had to begin to focus on public policy. And as an advocate, an analyst of public policy, he has no peer. He has no peer as a civil rights, human rights leader, and I don't say that in any disparaging way. He is just an authentic genius in terms of his capacity to analyze and put forth prescriptions on public policy. He is genuinely a historic figure. He is a historic figure who's still among us, still championing the cause. And we wanted him to come today because, you know, people pick up an issue here and an issue there, but over and over again, for years and years and years, it was the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson who's talked about the issue of investing on the front end instead of paying the price on the back end.
That's right.
I mean, he didn't just start this yesterday. He's been on this for decades, talking, going to schools and encouraging people to do better in their lives and to avoid the trap of the criminal justice system and all the things that are out here. And also linking it to the question of the socio-economic crises we face in these United States of America. Would you please now acknowledge the Reverend, the President of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson.
Let me express my sincere thanks and appreciation to Dr. Ron Daniels for his kind and generous introduction, for our kinship across the years when he was but a youngster in Youngstown, Ohio, feeling his way through, trying to determine the contour of his career. We've all been blessed and made better because of the continuous service of Dr. Ron Daniels, and he is all of that and more. One that's written the most consistent with it was fighting as organized in Ohio, for him to write the document for the Black Convention in Gary, Indiana, for him to direct our crusades in the 80s. He's always been there. Let's give Dr. Daniels a big hand. Put hands together. There was an idea that John Conyers could not win, running just to kind of make a statement, but did not have the support of the Michigan power structure. Dr. King endorsed John Conyers for Congress. He won by 36 votes. Every vote counts. He's the only man that Dr. King endorsed. He did a robocall for Mayor Hatcher. There was so much black resistance to a black man, Gary. They challenged him not to come to Gary. He did a robocall for Mayor Hatcher. He campaigned actively for John Conyers, and both of them won. And so Dick Hatcher and John Conyers are part of that great legacy. I don't think the distinguished Dias guest we're here today, who spent so much time in the shadows, it seems, making this case for 40 years, remain on the case. We thank you sincerely so much. As Ron indicated, the Rainbow Push Convention starts tomorrow.
18th through 22nd in Chicago. We deal with this and other issues tomorrow morning. We focus on there are now 34 states. The same forces sought to deny the right to vote, now seek to officially suppress the vote. 34 states with some scheme to undermine the impact of the vote and determine the turnout and the victory in 2012. So thank you, Dr. Vance, for allowing me to share with you today. 150 years since the Civil War, 40 years since the drug war, and we're still targeted. Targeted for negative action, never targeted for affirmative action. Being black in America is an expensive proposition. Chances are a high infant mortality rate, a shorter life expectancy, and much pain in between. The war on drugs has not failed to achieve its purpose. It was politically inspired to arrive at a given conclusion. The war on drugs has failed to stop drugs. It's not failed to stop profit. It's not failed to stop political disenfranchisement. It's not failed to stop destruction of a generation of people. Well, why not focus so much on public policy? I learned early on that we live in our faith. We live under the law. People of faith must fight for just law. Many of us are stuck on faith and live within the limits of unjust law. We had faith, much prayer, much singing, powerful preaching in slavery time. Well, until the 13th Amendment was passed, we could not walk away from the plantation. We had faith in Selma, Alabama. But on August the 6th, we didn't have the right to vote. And so I believe in faith as the weapon that gives the strength to fight for just law. But the faith without the just law is to be faithful on the back of the bus. Faithful and disenfranchised, faithful and trapped under the throes of apartheid. Historically, African Americans have been the objects of degradation, exploitation, isolation, and despised. The only group that required a civil war and the 13th Amendment to win emancipation from 246 years of slavery, then 100 years of legal government enforced segregation. The patterns of race discrimination and disparity continue today, most pronounced in the prison industrial complex, denial of equal education and employment. The tragedy of the drug war. The federal government took the lead in the race and class discrimination. Historically, we had some relief when there was a government intervention in this big debate between states' rights and the more perfect union. The government had to intervene in 1863. Had to intervene to save the union, to end slavery driven by the question of slavery. It had to intervene. 1954, the government had to intervene. The Voting Rights Act, the government had to intervene. The 65 Voting Rights Act, the government had to intervene. To get EEOC contract compliance, affirmative action, fair employment, enforcement of these laws, the government had to intervene. Now the states' rights seek to end that intervention and to remove the troops yet again, leaving us as a people exposed to something less than full citizenship, government intervention. And so today there is some data that's well worth your reading today on the internet. I pray you will get it today. Report more whites use drugs, more blacks in prison. Blacks are the collateral damage, if not the direct object of the drug war. The nation's war on drugs unfairly targets African Americans, who are far more likely to be imprisoned for drug offenses than whites, even though far more whites use illegal drugs than blacks. according to a new report by the advocacy group Human Rights. Report to be released today said African Americans accounted for 62% of the drug offenders sent to state prisons nationwide in 1996, the most recent year for which statistics are available. Well, they represent 12% of the U.S. population. Overall, black men are sent to state prisons on drug charges at 13 times the rate of white men, according to the study, which analyzed a wide range of Justice Department information for 37 states to come up with its findings. These disparities exist even though data gathered by the Department of Health and Human Services through 91, 92, and 93, about 5 times as many whites had used cocaine as blacks. Reports said that drug transactions among blacks are often easier for police to target because they more often occur in public than do drug transactions among whites. The disparities are particularly striking in individual states where black men are sent to prison on drug charges at a rate 57 times greater than other white men. In Maryland, for example, blacks make up 27% of the population and 90% of those sent to prison on drug charges, a rate that is 28 times greater than that of whites. In Virginia, meanwhile, blacks are 82% of those sent to prison on drug charges, 20% of the population. Remedies suggested in the Human Rights Watch report include repeal of mandatory sentencing, laws for drug offenses, increasing drug treatment, and eliminating racial profiling as police tactic. Largely because of the huge disparity in imprisonment for drug offenses, blacks are sent to prison 8.2 times the rate of whites. It doesn't stop. Some outstanding examples in the Chicago Tribune, March 10th. Highway robbery. The article explains police here allegedly have found a way, this is in Texas, to strip motorists, many of them black, of their property, without ever charging them with the crime. Instead, they offer out-of-towners a grim choice: voluntarily sign over your belongings to the town, or face felony charges of money laundering and other serious crimes, including drug trafficking. Another case in Tulia, Texas, 35 people who were convicted of drug charges based on the testimony of an undercover agent later charged with perjury. Texas demanded a justice system that's tough but fair in a statement released by the governor. More than 25.4 million Americans have been arrested on drug charges since 1980. 25.4. About 1/3 of them were black, although African Americans make up about 12% of the population. Now watch this data. In Georgia, the population of blacks 29%, prisons 64%. Arkansas 16%, black, prisons 52%. Louisiana 33%, prisons 76%. Mississippi 36%, prisons 75%. Alabama 26%, prisons 65%. Tennessee 16% population, prisons 53%. Kentucky 7%, prisons 36%. South Carolina 30% prison population 69%. North Carolina 22, population, prison 64%. Virginia 20%, prison population 68%. This is a crime against humanity. War on drugs is a war on black and brown, and must be challenged by the highest levels of our government in this war for justice. Several things. One, this is government-sponsored terrorism. This is government-sponsored terrorism. Number two, this is raised the price on black existence. It's raised the price on black existence. Three, it is an attack on the black family. Four, it is destroying a generation. Five, the least users paid the most price because of race. Those with money and attorneys paid the least price. Those without attorneys remain behind bars today. The father for the jail industrial complex, the Correctional Corporation of America, Stock Exchange today. Money has been made, even as we talk. This is not back in the day. This is today. We need a presidential commission on review, remedy, and action. A presidential commission. If we can extol virtue upon truth and reconciliation in South Africa and make cases for peace and reconciliation, let it begin at home. We need a presidential commission on review, in light of the data, remedy, and action. Let us take our case to the United Nations. This is a global crisis against humanity. We are 5% of the population and 25% of the jail population. China, 25% of the population, 5% of the prison population. We're engaged in a war in Libya against leadership to destroy its own people.
Yes. That's right.
We must have a higher standard. The rationale of the war in Libya is we must stop Gaddafi from waging a war against his own people. And we should. We should have a higher standard.
That's right.
This is a war by our government against black and brown citizens. Now that we know better, we should empirically do better and act now.
That's right.
The feds must be aggressive in acting to end racial targeting, but must not be a perpetrator of it. Treat and heal the sick. Educational incarceration. $4,000 a year for treatment, $25,000 for incarceration. We must meet with the Attorney General Holder. Petition the President for relief, remedy, and action now. Now, closing this note, Dr. Ron, most fundamental to all of our rights is the right to vote. The New York Times editorial said last week, we're one vote away from a states' rights Supreme Court. That's 1896. It warned that these 34 states attacking the Voting Rights Act, there's a common theme: attack workers' right to organize, the working people's lobby, or reapportion people into isolation, attack public education, and fire teachers, use the scheme to undermine the impact of the vote, not to stop the vote, but to shave points. That was a big game.